Yeah, I can just about hear you. You do sound like you're underwater. Hello, my name is Mared. I did not prepare myself for an intro, so I'm trying my best now. I did English literature at Cardiff Uni and then an MA in creative writing. And I've been invited here to talk tonight because I recently started an Instagram account about Welsh devolution, where I post about Welsh-centric coronavirus news. And that's sort of the gist of what I'm doing. My apologies, just realised my video wasn't on. Everything's going a little bit wrong today, but I'm assuming you just heard what I was saying. So yes, I work in social media and marketing as a freelancer and on a part-time basis. And I'm also a video content creator, which is always quite fun to do. And I'm hoping that the sound is being heard properly right now. There we go, Hannah's nodding, everything's going fine. Yeah, that is the gist of what I do. Thank you for being here. I might sound any better now. I'm afraid your sound is not any better.
Oh, I believe that one was for me. So I'm sure you'll probably figure out the sound as much as possible. I'll just do a quick intro of myself. Yeah, I'm George Bellwood. I'm a graduate at Cardiff University of 2019. I currently run a company called Tech, which is a digital touring platform that uses the combination of virtual reality and digital features. I started the company up in my second year at university after I gained a 2-1 degree in marketing, business management marketing. So the idea sort of came from a lecture myself, of which now I currently run a business providing virtual reality solutions to tech companies and organizations across the UK. I wonder if anyone's still here.
Hi guys. So sorry, this is a throwing you now. My name's Caroline. I work with Hannah in the in the development office, and I am jumping on very last minute just to take her place. So do apologise for all the sound issues that we're having. Thanks for Mared and George for being with us and for bearing with us. I'm really sorry. I haven't quite got the list of questions that I know that Hannah had in mind for you at the moment. So can I just start with a really broad question? Mara, will start with you and then maybe I can hand over to George, just so I'm waiting for my official question pack to come through. And just say, so Mara, it's a really big topic. Tell me about, could you give kind of your top tips on digital innovation and what have you found out maybe since leaving university or even just in this last 7 months as the world has gone so crazy?
Yeah, of course. So off the top of my head, my top tip for like if anyone's watching who's a business owner or just trying to develop any kind of brand or something like that, just make sure your brand or your business is online. Because right now, people, you know, if people can't go to your bricks and mortar shop, for example, they are expecting to be able to contact you in some way through social media or a website. So even if you can't afford a website right now, just quickly create a Facebook page or an Instagram account. And that means you have a direct way of talking to your customers whenever there's a change. So let's say your shop has to close because of the pandemic, you can directly tell people through your Instagram or your Facebook. That's my tip.
I love that. Thank you, George. What about yourself? What were your top tips that you can give us right from the outset?
Well, sort of the things that Mard sort of said, for those that have sort of been struggling, especially in these sort of conditions that everyone's in with coronavirus, and with data innovation being so key at the moment, everyone are all looking to go digital due to the fact that no one can actually get to the shops very easily or they're limited in terms of the access. Organizations who have now to change as quickly as possible and adapt by building their own websites, you know, for the ones that they haven't even needed to do for such a long time. have now been forced into doing this. And, you know, again, the sort of top tip that I would sort of give in my sort of view on it would be exactly what Mark said, which is, you know, if you can't get a website going or anything like that, then look to social media, as everyone will be looking to have that sort of traction from that, and having to have that sort of open access to your business in those regards.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Right, I've got my questions, so I'm back on track, guys. So thank you everybody watching for just bearing with us. So I wonder if Marit, if I can start, I'm just going to keep going that way just because that's the way we were introduced. What about for you personally? What's the timeline been like for you since March personally? What kind of journey have you gone on professionally?
So my professional journey ended up being rather interrupted by coronavirus. So in February, I was leaving my job, ready to start a new one in March. And then in the week between jobs, lockdown arrived. So yeah, sod's law is what I'd like to call it. Luckily, even though I wasn't able to start my new job because that agency had to shut down, my previous employers were able to furlough me, but I suddenly found myself for about 4 months with nothing to do. Yeah, so I was just sort of sitting there, consuming the news a lot, as everyone was at the start of lockdown, less so now. And I realized that people just weren't, well, a lot of people based in Wales especially weren't that aware that Wales had its own regulations when it came to coronavirus. So even though, you know, I'm no expert on devolution, I'm as much of an expert as I am Welsh. But I just thought, I do want to start like clarifying this, because I was getting really tired of BBC News referring to, you know, the whole of the UK as if like they've all got, they're like all following one set of rules, when that just isn't the case, because the devolved nations have their own rules and regulations, because health is a devolved matter. So what happened was I was ranting about this on social media, as one does, and decided, wow, I'm becoming known for these rants. I might as well create a separate account for them. And that's how my Instagram account, Welsh Devolution, came to be. And it's now got around 1,700 followers. And what I do is, around every day, I just provide clear, concise news or updates on the coronavirus regulations in Wales, and also like things that might just be relevant to Wales in general. And luckily, around July, I got the new job back. So no longer bored and furloughed. That was me.
Awesome. Thank you. And George, what about you? What about yourself? Could you tell us about your journey in the last 7 months?
Well, we've been quite busy in the last 7 months, to sort of say, other than obviously some other companies have unfortunately not been as lucky. But in terms of the tech side of things, we've seen such a drastic change in the use of technology and digital innovation as well. You know, people have had to adapt as quickly as possible, as I was saying in my previous question. So with us, we've been working quite a lot with a lot of independent organisations around Cardiff, especially, to help boost their businesses as much as possible for using with the use of our technology that we've provided, just to help give customers more information. I think with the whole COVID situation that's been going on, people have been looking at new ways to express to clients or to customers how they've been changing their ways, you know, to ensure their safety, putting measures into place. So from our sort of timeline situation, we've been extremely busy. We've been helping out one of the biggest universities in Wales, one major university, which we've just actually launched the UK's largest university virtual tour, which was quite exciting for us to do for that individual university. But for them, that was a project that they wanted to show students how what measures they've been putting into place and how learning will continue for them. Other than that, we've also been helping out some local independent hotels, for example, because obviously they've had a massive issue with getting guests back into their hotels. And so obviously we've come in using our technology and our display digital platforms with integrated features to help boost them as much as possible. So we've been quite fortunate enough in the last 7 months since March.
Wow. Well, yeah, quite a lot going on. I mean, great to have that business coming to you and to have you there to provide some solutions. So there's been countless examples of digital innovation during this time, approaching innovation as the solution, like you've just mentioned, George, to the problem, but with the problem also requiring a solution. So Mary, back to you again. What does digital innovation mean to you, if I can ask?
Well, in its most sort of broad definition, is being innovative in a digital way. So it's using the technology that you've got available and making it work for you, or making it work for your customers, or making it work for, you know, whatever you're trying to achieve in life. Oh, hello, Hannah. But yeah, it's just about like trying to like take what you have and be creative about it and just do your best with what you have. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to reinvent the wheel or anything like that. Even if it's just a matter of creating an Instagram account for your rants about Welsh devolution, that is being innovative on a digital platform.
I do follow Mared's Instagram account, and I can assure you it's not just rants at all. It's actually really, really useful.
It used to be.
George, what about yourself? What does digital innovation mean for you?
Well, I think digital innovation sort of, as Mared said, it's such a broad thing. But for me, it means being able to adapt as quickly as possible in likes of, you know, with everything that's been going on with COVID. You know, digital innovation is something that most organizations from our part, if you aren't a tech company, if you are sort of a retailer, or you run a sort of a different sort of organization in a different market, you will need those digital innovations to match sort of consumer behaviors and to match how people have been interacting and purchasing goods, for example. For us, I think it's been able to get connection with your customers, you know, on various platforms, you know, whether that's social media, whether that's a website, you know, whether that's an integrated digital platform that you might be using to help, you know, omni-channels, for example, to help sort of engage with your customers as much as possible. So I think that, from our perspective, is where digital innovation sort of comes from, is being able to do something new, maybe as well, for customers to sort of keep that loyalty there.
Awesome. Thank you. Hannah, are you jumping back on?
I will say, is this okay with my sound?
Yes.
Sure it is. We can hear you nicely.
Fantastic. I'm so sorry for all of those technical problems, and it's lovely to be back in the webinar now. And thank you so much to Caroline for stepping in at very last minute. No, absolutely typical, isn't it? That as soon as you know, all the practices, all the sound works perfectly. But no, I really appreciate that, Caroline. And thank you all for sticking with us as well as we had those technical problems. And yeah, brilliant to be back in the webinar. So thank you. Thank you. So going on to kind of the next questions we've had submitted in advance. One question was, of course, being Cardiff alumni, if you're both Cardiff based, how have you seen where you live and the city you're in change? And kind of, has this informed your approach to your initiatives?
So even before like lockdown was a thing, even before we knew about coronavirus, I noticed, because I've lived in Cardiff now for how long? I just had to look at the time. That won't tell me. 8 years. And I did notice even before like all this happened that there was a massive shift from the creative sort of community in Cardiff onto the digital platforms. And it's been really just like fascinating to see. And that's how I personally have been making connections with people. I've been seeing their Etsy shops and like advertise on Instagram, and I've been thinking, wow, that's a really cool person. I want to engage with this person. Start following them, and then start following their friends, and slowly just creating this sort of creative community online. And then you get to meet them in real life, and you know, proper like events like Creative Mornings Cardiff Design Fest. Like there's just so much going on in Cardiff. I definitely think like the creativity has just developed tenfold since I've been here. Not as a direct impact of me.
That'd be a big claim, wouldn't it? And how about yourself, George, from, of course, a completely different angle?
Yeah, I think from sort of looking at in terms of the tech side of things, the way I've seen Cardiff go is there's a lot of tech companies out there now in Cardiff, you know, startup companies especially. It's such a hot spot at the moment for tech companies to start up and sort of drive innovation, as you like, and creating many jobs. The one thing that I have been seeing here in especially in sort of the Cardiff community is the amount of support that you can get as a startup. There are very many different schemes out there that people can join up from, like Business Wales, for example, that we're a part of, you know, who support us in those sort of regards to help offer our services to that networking of the Cardiff community and in Wales, for example. You know, they've been talking quite a lot about Cardiff being the UK version of Silicon Valley because there are so many tech startups happening. And there's a lot of investors that are looking from America, actually, funny enough, to invest in companies here in the UK as part of their strategy towards, you know, dominating Europe, if you like, looking in search of the next unicorn, or the next tech great biggest Facebook or Instagram, or for example. So I have seen that there's a lot of change happened in this community, especially, which is sit quite nicely with us, you know, and here at the right time.
Absolutely, and it's so promising that, you know, Cardiff and the southwest is that area that you know, the Silicon Valley of the UK is looking towards, and it's not as London centric as you might expect. I'm really enthused to hear that. Of course, you know, we always think we've got a bit of a lovely best kept secret in Wales and in Cardiff, and it's just lovely that other people know about it for such a positive impact. So that's brilliant. Following on from that, actually, George, we had a question was, how has your business model kind of adapted to best support companies during this time?
Well, to be fair, you know, we've sort of adapted because as sort of digitally, there's a lot of companies have been quite behind, you know, if you look at it in the way of consumer behavior and how they're moving forward, you know, digitally and sort of innovatively, consumers are very stuck in their own way sometimes, of, you know, being quite settled on sort of the way that things function and work, especially with the websites and everything like that. With us bringing in the new virtual reality, you know, we're in a whole market where there was a lot of ums and ahs about whether virtual reality would actually make it or not. We've already seen the peak of virtual reality and everything like that. And so what we've tried to do and adapt was bring a little bit of virtual reality with the digital features that you would normally find in, you know, for example, YouTube and for Facebook, etc., where you can actually interact with these sorts of stuff. So I would probably say that I've seen a change in our company to try and help organizations match what their consumers are looking for and how their consumers are going using technology. So yeah, I think that's how we've sort of adapted, especially in the past 7 months. You know, we've been excelled so quickly into using digital things. You know, for example, apps, the amount, like, you go to a restaurant now, you have to order from an app. You have the most independent organizations or restaurants who hardly have any tech background or knowledge or anything like that, who may not even have a website, have now had to adapt by using an app for you to order your phone to ensure that you aren't breaching any, you know, COVID or government guidelines and everything like that. So that's how we've sort of seen it.
Brilliant. That's so insightful, and there's so much that I've learned just from that answer there. It's brilliant. A question we've had for you, Mared, was have you noticed patterns of behaviour from your audience, giving an insight also similar to this on how individuals consume news? And has your audience kind of lost momentum since we're going into this second wave?
When it comes to momentum, it definitely follows like just how intense the news is. So like over the summer when things were a bit better in terms of, you know, coronavirus, my, you know, Instagram was slowing down again, getting less engagement. And that was for the best because people were clearly, you know, a bit more calm, not spending as much time on their phones anymore. Then September hit and lockdown 2.0 and all the local lockdowns. But yeah, so the first part of the question, like how people are consuming the news, like even, you know, before coronavirus was a thing, people have always consumed news differently. Some people do it, you know, just through Twitter. Some people will, you know, buy a newspaper and watch BBC News every day. And then others will, you know, not really engage with the news at all, except for when it's just sort of accidentally thrown their way, which is kind of what was my plan with Instagram. So the nature of Instagram means you can't share links, you can't really share that much sort of wordy content. It tends to be image-based. So people who spend most of their time on Instagram, they aren't really there to get the news. But since coronavirus, and especially I noticed this with the Black Lives Matter movement, Instagram has actually become a massive place for social movement, like social justice and like social issues, which actually makes it the perfect place for something like this. Because the issue with like Facebook and Twitter and other social media is clickbaity headlines. You can't get that on Instagram because there's no headlines, there's no links, there's nothing to click. So what I'm doing with Instagram is trying to keep it as clear and concise and, you know, truthful as possible. And I make it so that it's like purposefully, like, because it's so short and easy, people can just quickly share it on their stories and it gets the information that needs to be out there. Well, it just gets it out there easily because people are so happy to share it to their stories.
And have you kind of learned from, you know, feedback from your audience as well of what they are interested in and what works in terms of insights as well? Yeah,
they love bad news. But also, like, well, I got interesting feedback just from like design aspect as well. I had someone say that the way I was previously presenting it, which was a red background with white text, wasn't accessible. And I was like, that's a fair point. So I changed the way that I was, you know, providing this news. But people have come to expect now, just because I've been posting nearly daily, they are sort of expecting either daily updates or just some sort of content once a day. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to create like a sort of go-to account where people know they can get, you know, just the latest news and they don't have to go deep into, you know, the BBC website or listen to the news, because I know it can be really like detrimental to mental health to spend too much time consuming news. So that's why I'm just, trying to keep it as brief and concise and regular as possible.
Fantastic. Now that makes complete sense, of course, but it's really useful to kind of learn exactly how that is what people are asking for, and therefore why overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
Cool. Kind of related to that, I'm sure both of you would have a good insight into this, but what advice would you give businesses that have not previously needed much of a digital presence? So George, you kind of touched on that a little bit with maybe they wouldn't even have a website, but you now need this app. But yeah, if you are completely coming at it saying I need a digital presence, but I don't have one, where do you start?
I think there's a lot of, as I was saying, there's a lot of help schemes at the moment and a lot of support from local authorities, as well as some independent organisations that will sort of help anyone who is in that sort of hardship, if you like, you know, who don't know where to start and don't know how to actually approach that. I would probably start off there by looking at, you know, where you can get those sort of digital innovations, if you like, you know, and to bring in those basics, and pretty much look into those sort of schemes that can help them out as much as possible. That's where I would sort of start off.
And do you have anything to add to that, Mared?
Yeah, just kind of similar to what I said while I think you were having your underwater audio difficulties. Like my main sort of recommendation for someone who previously didn't think they needed a website or digital presence is just create a Facebook page, just create an Instagram account, just create something so that you have some sort of virtual shop front. So even if people can't like come directly to you to like either, you know, shop your, you know, browse your shop or just talk to you, like you don't have to spend loads of money on creating, you know, a website. You just have somewhere where people can contact you, and it'll make a world of difference, because then you can directly talk to your customers, they can directly talk to you, and all it takes is creating a Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I'm sure our audience will find that if you already have some sort of social media presence in your personal life, it isn't overly different whenever you try and sell yourself as a Facebook page for your business, I'm sure. Just, slightly less embarrassing photos of the past.
Yeah, that's my main tip. If you're a business owner, don't just use your personal page. Definitely create a separate one, because people don't want, well, I want to see your cute dogs, but your customers might not want to.
That's fair enough. Kind of related to that, one of the questions we've had through is from, and this was submitted in advance, was, as we move towards more digital platforms and ways of working, do you think geography and location will soon be obsolete when employers are looking for the best staff? Of course, we're all online, all the time, wherever you are in the world. Is that going to be obsolete whenever we enter into a new world? George, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all, when we all started, going into pandemic back in March, end of March, everyone had to adapt as quickly as possible to be able to work from home. And I think at the start, everyone thought it was bliss, because productivity may start increasing. You're in the comfort of your own home. You don't have to dress up to go to the office. When you have meetings, you could actually sometimes dress just half nice and then and the bottom half. I think people had adopted that quite nicely, if you like, and actually found it a bit different. But now that we're sort of we're now more of the 6, 7, 8 months in sort of thing, I think people are now starting to realise that working from home there's no structure to it than actually going into the office. So I'd be honest with you, I'd be honest to say that I think that it wouldn't be obsolete at the moment, just yet. I know there are a lot of companies out there that are starting to, say to them, right, we've completely closed the office down and no one's coming in, because it depends in sort of the line of work you have as well. For us, we've been working from home because we can do that, because all we do is like computer-based and nothing like that. We don't actually need to physically go anywhere unless obviously a client actually needs us to go into anywhere. But I think at the moment, it won't be an obsolete personally. So yeah.
And how about you, Marad? Obviously working in a digital sphere already, in terms of social media as well. Is that the same? Do you feel the same?
Well, so because a lot of my work was already sort of being done from home, it wasn't a massive change for me to start working from home, especially like when I went from being a student to going like into employment, and then just a couple of years later, coronavirus. So I'm used to being, furiously typing away at my desk just a meter away from my bed, which you can see here. But I do agree, though, that like until technology develops enough so that people can easily work from home, right now, working in the office and hiring people, that's not like going to be obsolete just yet, hiring face to face. Because at the moment, well, for me, like just from a personal experience, working from home isn't that suitable. I am working from my bedroom. I don't have like a separate office space. So until, society develops enough where people do have the space they need to work from home and the equipment they need and the technology they need, it's not going to be obsolete. It's getting there. Maybe, in 20 years. And this has definitely been one hell of a kickstart. But it's definitely not obsolete. And once you're able to return to the office, people will be doing it gladly.
That's fair. You lose a lot of the human interactions of just the routine and walking to work even, or catching up with your colleagues. It's interesting to see how different businesses have adapted to kind of try to replace those things. It's really interesting. George, do you think VR will continue to be a tool businesses use to showcase their venue or product post-pandemic? This is from Anna in Cardiff.
Yes, I do actually. I think as I was sort of explaining with the sort of the VR market in terms of where it is actually going and whether people have actually adapted to that, there's many ways where you can include VR, which is you know, the virtual headsets that you can pop on, to opposed to actually seeing it from your phone to then seeing it on the computer. You will be able to, I think people and organizations will want to see, you know, what those organizations are offering, you know, and what we do quite clearly and nicely, opposed to just a natural sort of photography based, which is just a 360-degree view of it. With our interactive features, you know, we're able to put so much more detailed information on, so that it does actually grab the customer's attention. They get to gain more information literally from one easy to use platform, if you like, that's customized to that organization. So I think post pandemic, in the next, well, hopefully in the next year or so, if it's not going to be longer, I think this has really pushed it, because, for example, in the VR market for especially house viewings, is now realised this for estate agents, that they can actually showcase as many houses as possible, and potential buyers can literally filter through so many houses, making that process a lot quicker for them. So I do believe that for organisations afterwards, the VR sort of showcasing those venues and everything will definitely stay on top. And if not, I think that, because what we quite do a lot is we do a lot of data capture on that as well, seeing how people have interacted with it. I think that is a massive key as well, because obviously data is very important at the moment to a lot of organisations to understand about their consumers, and by us being able to help organisations see where they've actually been looking and clicking and what they've been massively interested in, a lot of these companies have been able to market themselves purely from that. So I do believe it will continue, especially afterwards.
That's brilliant. And I, as you were saying, I could think of so many scenarios where actually having a way to experience an environment where you can't physically go there at that moment, I'd like to think that once, you know, the world is open again, there will still be a market for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think with one of the things that which was the very first idea that we ever came up with, me and my business partner, Robin Davies, we actually thought of it as a supermarket idea, actually. A virtual online shopping platform is a whole new way, which we're currently working at the moment to do with local independents, because obviously times like today, you can't get out to the shop, so you're going to be able to virtually click on things and shop about, like
Fantastic. Yeah, well, it's great to hear where your ideas stem from as well. I mean, with both of you, that we'll probably have time for maybe 2 more questions before we wrap up, and I do appreciate everyone's time as well, sticking with us as we had our technical issues that were mainly were there various networks that you've both benefited from on your journey of kind of digital innovation? George, I think you touched, I'm not sure if this was whenever I was in the ether, of kind of the network you had just straight after university and the support you had there.
Yes, whilst I was at university, I was on the NatWest Accelerator program, which is a perfect program to go on for those who are looking to start up their business, for example, because the NatWest team have been extremely helpful for mentors and for likes of getting you in touch with potential clients, as well as even investors as well, because one of the huge things for tech companies now is they go for investment straight away. You know, with this crazy money of 500,000 to £1 million investments as you get for tech companies coming up, this is definitely something that we had gone on to that journey, but we decided not to go for the investment route because we wanted to disrupt that in terms of being a tech company that didn't have to go out and get a seed investment. We could build it from the ground up and grow organically, if you like, which is one of our main objectives as a company, as we've decided now.
Fantastic. Anything to add there as well, Marid?
Yeah, so I'd say in a very different route to George, I benefited from 2 communities, mainly since graduating. The first one was Cardiff University itself. So I was lucky enough to have an internship during my master's degree with the very department that organised this talk. So that like sort of naturally led me towards a sort of marketing communications career, because the internship I did was in communications, and it made me realise, oh, I like this. And then the second community that I just owe so much to is the creative community in Cardiff, especially that Creative Mornings Cardiff, which is a sort of monthly online, well, now it's online, didn't used to be, a breakfast lecture series. It's always a mouthful to say. And I used to volunteer for them for about a year. I've recently left just because I'm so busy. But just a fantastic space where you can meet so many people. And I just owe so much to them. They definitely sort of helped me guide myself in this direction as a creative. So yep, highly recommend joining some sort of creative gang.
Fantastic. And this will be our last question for this evening before we do a few wrap up little bits. But kind of what is next for both of you? There's so many exciting things you've both explained this evening, and you know, as we kind of enter into the England firebreak from England lockdown rather from tomorrow, and we're still in our Wales firebreak. You know, there's still lots of new things that are kind of in the pipeline that are both COVID related and also, of course, the future. Mara, do you want to start?
Yes. So career-wise, I've managed to get myself a very interesting little job with S4C, where I'm creating Welsh video gaming content for kids. And it's just fantastic that this is a job I managed to get from my bedroom, and it's something I can do from my desk, because all I do is just record myself playing a fun game and then I put it on the internet. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm also hoping to soon transition into like even more freelance sort of career. But that's sort of, you know, I'm sure George has a lot bigger plans than me, because mine is just playing video games and having a great time.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so that's where I am.
And George, how about yourself?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, well, we have a lot planned. You know, I've got a fantastic team. My co-founder is also a Cardiff graduate, Robin Davies. He's a whiz at coding and all this sort of thing. We're looking into more machine learning operations at the moment to make our services a lot quicker but more automated at the moment, and people to create their own virtual tours, which is something that we're we've just launched our new digital customized platform, which allows people to upload their own 360 images, you know, now that it's a lot easier to get those, and to create your own sort of virtual reality world by adding in those different contents that you want to get away. I mean, we've been lucky enough to be working with some big universities and some big clients, but we've obviously been helping out a lot of the smaller guys at the moment, which is what we've really wanted to do. We're starting to look now towards the retail market, as I said. We're virtual tour or shop tour, so hopefully that's going to be somewhere that we're going to do. And yeah, we're as I said, we're growing organically, so we're now going to be looking to hire some people now, and to sort of come on board onto the Virtus Tech team, and really hopefully, you know, help out the community as best as we can.
Fantastic. But both sounds very exciting for both of you, and I look forward to kind of following your journey as you both grow in this area. It's brilliant. Well, that is our last question for today, because we are very much out of time, and thank you all again for bearing with us, and thank you both Marad and George for sharing both your experiences. For me, I suppose we've kind of touched on the underlying principles of innovation, I suppose, kind of how people will only be willing to innovate if the risk of failure is less than the benefits of success. So we've found that kind of the time of COVID, it's provided that scenario where there has been that drive for people who may not necessarily adopt something new, but it was necessary to do so, which is really interesting times. And of course, 7 months in, there's a lot that we've learnt from that experience. A lot of course, negatives, but also trying to think about the positives of that, which I think is really exciting. Thank you very much as well to all of our attendees for all of the questions you've sent in today. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to discuss them all, but if you are a Cardiff alumnus or alumna, staff or student, you can join us on our exclusive new platform, which is called Cardiff Connected, where we'll be continuing the conversation there. Again, if you are an alumnus of the university and you have a topic that you'd like to pitch for our For Alumni by Alumni series, of which this is one, either a live webinar or a written blog in our e-news, please do get in touch, and the details of how to do so will be in our follow-up email, along with a recording of this event too. We've got a programme of online events coming up, so you can access the full list of those events via our website, which is cardiff.ac.uk/alumni/events. And you'll receive that follow-up email soon with links to the recordings and to register for those future events. Finally, thank you very much to Mared and George for sharing your expertise so generously. Diolch yn fawr iawn. And thank you also to all of our attendees too for joining us and asking such important questions in this discussion. Most of all, we hope you'll join Cardiff University again for another virtual event very soon with no technical difficulties. So thank you all for your time. Have a wonderful evening. Diolch yn fawr.